Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, BeefLoaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends, Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday night's only special, one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. and you get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but at their normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carry-out or delivery needs or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is powered by you, the 108 loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid. And that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest. He makes up 25% of the infamous quartet known as the Chicago Sports Bums. He's a connoisseur of in-store WD-40 and always packs some tequila for his Theo BeefLoaf at the tailgates. Bologna, welcome to the Au Jus.
Thank you, my friend. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Shout out Gordo for these shirts. It's got the BeefLoaf on the back. I love it. I need to get this autographed, by the way.
I don't know if I told you, but we're doing the Ramova show. He's got that shirt on. And a guy that I grew up with is in the back. We're in the back watching the Sox Machine set. And this dude walks up to me who I went to grade school with, and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, Beef, do you know that guy right there?" I was like, yeah, I'm aware that he made that shirt. Don't worry about it, buddy.
Yeah, he made a couple of them because there's a select few that got them.
Yeah, they're out there in these Twitter streets. Yeah. So, I mean, it is my birthday. Just sharing with the crowd, I'm 46 today. So easy enough to find. Thank you. Not over the hill, but age it a little bit. I thought it might be a fun idea to have Bologna, Peter Fonseca, come on this show and interview me. We've had some conversations. We've talked about some things, content and otherwise. And I thought, yeah, fuck it. Let's go ahead and do this. So, my friend, when you're actually before you're ready, let's get to this drink.
Yeah, of course.
Jackie says BeefLoaf, and thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that. Thanks for jumping in the comments.
Cheers, Jackie. I had the tweet out there, and let me drink before we do that.
Get in there. Get down on that a little bit.
Before we get going, it is your birthday. I had the tweet out there. I did a little bit of research, prepping for this show. I kind of have an idea of what the Au Jus record for Super Chats is. You got Bologna here. It's the BeefLoaf's birthday. We're celebrating. Why don't we break that record, people? Jackie's starting it off with a bang, $9.99. We appreciate that. I'm sure you guys do, Beef.
Absolutely.
Let's break some records tonight. I got nothing to do but sit here until my podcast starts. I want to get drunk by the time that happens.
Let's do it. I'm down. I got the tequila. I got about a half bottle. It's my birthday. Why not? Why not?
I'm doing tequila for you. I've got a tequila transfusion going.
Bless you. Let's get one from Gordo. Gordo says, "Happy birthday, Ruth Day Beef Bologna. Love the shirt." Thank you, Gordo.
Thank you, Gordo. HBIC says, "Save that energy for 8 p.m." You're on your own, buddy. I'm trying to get sloshed here.
He's trying to protect the main show. Sam Reeves says, BeefLoaf should be sending us money for his birthday. Look, the bums do a nice thing with their super chats. They put you in a raffle or whatever. The 108ers, we just keep the money. I'm sorry. It is the way it is. All right. We grew up a little differently than these guys. We need the money. So that's all I got to say about that.
We're going to talk content later on in the show because that is what I find that like whenever we sit down and talk or at a tailgate or at a game or whatever, like we say our pleasantries and then immediately both of our minds go to like content or ideas or things like that. Yes, but you mentioned the super chats. It's been a couple months that we got monetized from Google and we're all excited about it. Peek behind the curtain. Google takes a fat cut.
Yes.
We were shocked about that.
Yeah, it looks better during the show. We're like, look how much is coming in. It's like, oh, we have a silent partner that's taking a bunch of this. Like, yeah, we were like, well, it's still a good thing, but not as much as you thought it could be. Let's get to this chat.
This backfired already.
This is for your wife. This is for your wife, Julie. Happy birthday, Mr. Beef. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. And the fifth bum, Joey P. Cool off another drink. Salud, hermanos. Thank you, Joey. Bless you.
All right, now I am with HBIC. Joey, save that energy for 8 p.m.
Save those chats for then. So,
but thanks for having me, Beef. I'm excited about this.
I am too. I'm thrilled for us to do this. So, fire away. We'll save up some of these drinks. We'll hit them, in between questions if you need.
Yeah, so I kind of had an idea of how I wanted to go about this, and while we do talk a lot about content and White Sox Twitter and all that stuff, I've only been on White Sox Twitter since 2 years ago when Joey P made the 108 tournament, the infamous 108 tournament, and he kind of pulled the bums into this. Well, if you want to call it a cesspool, or I called it a dysfunctional family.
We call it a community, or that was the idea, but whatever you want to call it is good. But. Yeah,
but I don't really know a lot of the lure, and I don't know a lot of the background as other people do. So I do want to start off with just BeefLoaf growing up. Like obviously Chirizi's your brother. You guys grew up on the south side of Chicago and stuff like that. I just want to see what your ideas and thoughts were, or just growing up in the 80s and 90s, because you mentioned you remember the 85 Bears. I don't. It's
like the first sports team I remember. And full disclosure, Chirizi and I grew up in Bridgeport, so we are Mexican kids in the 80s in Bridgeport. Now Bridgeport was a different place if you go backwards like that, and if you do your history, you can look up how there were racial tensions, etc. back then. But we came up at a time kind of when our generation was a little more, let's say, welcoming to different ethnicities, and so we didn't face a lot of the stuff that like my dad, and then his father had faced, kind of breaking into the neighborhood there. But yeah, I mean, and we were west of Halstead, so they called it West Bridgeport. That's kind of like the area that the regular Bridgeporters are like, you're not really from Bridgeport, you're West Bridgeport. That's your area there. Even though we all went to grade school together, Bridgeport Catholic. So that's kind of like the where we start basically.
All right, and then so we talked about so Johnny's from the neighborhood. I got a lot of family that grew up. My mom worked at the Ramova for a long time.
Okay,
so I'm familiar with the area. I moved out of Chicago. So I say I'm half and half. So I was in the city proper for 10 years of my life. And then I'm boop, out in the suburbs. And it's completely different. But you were in there. I do want to say you grew up playing basketball, or at least you played basketball at De La Salle and stuff like that. You told a story on one of the podcasts of you and Chirizi growing up playing stop sign basketball, where you guys didn't have a hoop. So you're just aiming at a stop sign. Can you explain stop sign basketball to us?
Sure. I mean, at the corner, you've got the stop sign. There's a fire hydrant kind of close behind it, so that's really regulating how far behind, how much of a baseline you've got back there. And it's just, we're shooting baskets. We're playing out kind of in the street, or street basketball, and shooting off of there. We didn't even have the ingenuity yet to nail a crate up to it so that you could actually put a ball through it. This was just hitting. But it's an example of just doing with what you have, right? Whatever you got in the neighborhood. We didn't have there was no rims that were that close to us, or walking distance that my parents felt comfortable allowing us to go when we're 10 years old or 8 years old or whatever. And so it harkens back to no one had a pool in the city, right? During the summer was hot. You knew someone who was a tradesman who unlocked the fire hydrant. We called it the pump back then. And they'd put different keys on it so it would spray up in the air. That was our entertainment. That was the pool. That was the thing you did. We played a game. I mean, I'm sure you guys played it too, Bologna, a game called Swift. All you needed was some rubber balls and a brick wall, and you paint the strike zone.
Paint the strike zone, yep.
Exactly. And you play baseball like that. A lot of these things we you just had to make up the game that you could. I just saw a comment from SPF. He says Beef's parents were afraid of him and Trees would get beat up by the Latin Kings. Yeah, that's kind of true, actually, because the Latin Kings were all over Morgan Street. That was really close to us. And so, they didn't want us going far distances or places. They were protective of us in a lot of ways. And so that was the way we could play basketball until my parents, they tore down. We had they had bought an old home for their first home. And it had a broken down garage, and they had the city come and rip it out. And then my dad got poured some concrete and got his buddies out there, and they smoothed it out, and they put a rim in there, and we had a rim in our backyard. And it served us for a long time. That thing is still standing. So if I go to my parents' house, I go in the backyard and shoot baskets right now. I mean, that thing's been up there for 35 years or whatever. So my parents saw the need and were like, okay, these kids are interested. We're gonna put this together. But before then, it was some stop sign basketball. And hopefully it doesn't go too far in the street. We're kids. We shouldn't be running out in the street either.
That's true. Now, was it one-on-one or did you bring your friends too? Was it
Our friends would play, yeah. Our friends would
play.
play with us. So my good buddy who I ran into recently, I'll name drop him, Pat Galvin, who lived down the block. He would play with us. He's a year between Teresi and I, and so the other kids in the neighborhood, maybe 2-on-2, but 3-on-3 at the most or whatever. But Teresi and I would play 1-on-1 too. Like we we go at it Nerf hoop in the house 1-on-1 during the winter when it was cold and you couldn't go out. So
Nerf hoop. Our cousins, we had a basement at one of our cousins' house. We did the Nerf football and we played on our knees. It was like we're on our knees, but we're playing football.
You play football exactly in the house.
Now, was it just you and Teresi growing up?
It was, yeah. So we're the only two kids. My parents knew they couldn't afford any more kids, so thank God they stopped having them. So they could just barely afford to have the two of us. But yeah, it was just the two of us, and like our parents and further extension, our grandparents kind of instilled in us, hey, that's who you have to look out for. That other guy is the other guy you got to look out for. And we did that when we were kids, and so like you knew if you mess with one of us, you got the other one too, and their friends, and so you had to be prepared for that. And like there was a situation one time where a guy that I was friends with was picking on my little brother, and I had to throw hands. And I'm a peaceful guy, Bologna. I'm not a guy who wants to fight, but sometimes when that happens and you're in that situation, you're like, hey, this is the person I'm supposed to be protecting. I can't allow this shit, And so, but that's how we grew up. We came up like looking for each other's back. And we always have. We've never really been the type of brothers where we fight a lot. We might get into arguments and shit, but there was not a lot of like, I'm whooping his ass because I'm a lot bigger than him. We didn't. That wasn't it. We were looking out for each other.
That's pretty good. Like, I mean, I got a couple siblings, and my younger sister's way too young, but my sister's 4 years younger than us. I mean, it was guy versus girl. When she kicked my ass, I kicked her ass. It was an even scrap for a while. So I'm surprised that you didn't get into any dust-ups with Teresi.
No, that just wasn't our mode. Let's get to a few drinks because they're starting to pile up now. You encouraged this, Peter, which I love. So thank you. Let's get to Drew Bogues. He says, happy 21st birthday, Beef, 23 years later. 25 years later, actually. I'm 46 today. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you. CD44 says, happy birthday, Mr. Loaf. Appreciate what you do for the community. Thank you, CD. Appreciate you. Senor Sax, feliz cumpleaños, Patricio. Salud, hermanos. Thank you, senor. Making me read everything in Spanish. I appreciate that.
You know what? I didn't have this written down, and I know you guys are, of Mexican descent, but I've never really heard you guys speak Spanish. Do you guys speak Spanish?
No. Not at all. Not at all. I understand some stuff, but when we were going, I still curse my old man out for this. And I have a great relationship with my father, and my mother too, but like, I cursed my old man out about this because he spoke Spanish, at least street Spanish. But when we were kids, the emphasis was integrate. You want to speak English. You want to be good at speaking English. You do not want to speak Spanish. They never taught us. And so then when we went to high school, it was like, what, the kids with the Latin surnames can't speak a fucking lick of Spanish? It was like embarrassing. It was like, this is my worst class, man. How is this my worst shit?
That's tough. But
terrible.
But that makes a lot of sense because in my family, half of my aunts and uncles grew up in Mexico, and then the other half, because they're a family, or they're 8 brothers and sisters, so half were in Mexico, half were here, and the youngest that grew up in Bridgeport, they also don't speak Spanish.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it was something of the time that was the reason. Basically,
it makes sense.
And it's unfortunate because it would be such an asset. I remember when I was first in public accounting, and I worked for a mid-sized firm. One of the partners, he had some non-for-profit audits in some Latino areas. And so he sent me to do the jobs. And he's like, he would tell me, he's like, if you only spoke Spanish, there is an infinite amount of accounting work you could garner in these neighborhoods because people want to speak about money and taxes and these things in their native language. They don't want to talk to you in their second language. It's tough. And I totally understand that. I was like, it's like, man, I'm sorry. Maybe we should go back to school and learn Spanish because that could be really helpful, But I had the people skills, but not the language skills that I might have needed.
There were no Spanish classes taken at De La Salle. We can talk about high school.
I took them, but I took them below you, but I sucked at them. I did a good enough job to get like a B. Like I'm a good student. I don't want to like sandbag. I was a good student. I was in the high classes or whatever, and I did a pretty good job. I was not a great student. I was not a guy who I'm not going to be at the top of the class. I can compete with those guys, but I'm going to be kind of in the lower part of that group. And so Spanish was just going to be the weak link. And playing basketball too is a demanding schedule. I'm like, I just got to do what I got to do to get by. I just never put in the work to get better, basically.
All right, so putting in the work, you talk about playing basketball. I mean, we all grew up in the 90s. I assumed, obviously, like, we're diehard Bulls. But besides the Bulls, like, who would you say your game in high school emulated? Because I'll tell you right now, I played basketball before I played soccer, and I love Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd was my guy growing up. I thought I could, just assist and shoot threes. That was my game. And I was not that good of a shooter, just like Jason Kidd, too. So it was mostly the assists.
Oh, it's funny. Like the guy whose game I loved the most, couldn't really emulate it, was Scottie Pippen, because he could do everything. And I know I'm a Pippen stan, and like I've been making a big deal about all of Pippen's goofy shit now. But watching Pippen back with those '90s Bulls, obviously you love Jordan. Jordan was something you're just never going to see again, an all-time great player. But right next to him was like the ultimate team player, a guy who could kind of do everything. If you needed him to score, he score. If you needed him to run the point, even at 6'7" back then. And it sounds funny, like fast forward 30 years. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of tall point guards. But back then there weren't. And he guy could run the point. He could cover the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, anybody who needed to be covered. He was terrific on defense. Just everything. He could do everything. And it was like, that was the guy you wanted to, like, he's a good rebounder. Like he could kind of do everything. So the game that I loved the most was probably his. I mean, a couple guys who I really liked, but I didn't emulate their game. Charles Barkley, because how powerful he was. Like, people watch Chuck on TV and think, oh, he's laughing and all this shit. That guy was the second best player in basketball for a stretch of like 5 years, right? I mean, he was like right behind MJ. Terrific fucking player, could do absolutely everything. He wasn't that big either. He's like 6'4". They might have listed him at 6'6". Rebounds, could jump out the gym, could shoot the ball. Like, he could fucking do everything. He was fun to watch. Hakeem Olajuwon was fun to watch as well, because the big man with like this crazy footwork. Like nowadays, a lot of the big men can move like that. But Hakeem was the one guy who could move like that back in those days. It was like he was kind of a unicorn. But the guy who I probably modeled my game after, who I was trying to play like anytime I was playing grade school up through high school, was probably Chris Webber. Because I liked the Fab Five, and I just loved the way he played. He was powerful but athletic. He'd get to the basket. He was smooth with the movements, But he was a guy who was not afraid to get in there and mix it up. And I kind of, that was my, like, I was what they would call a slasher when I played basketball. I wasn't a good shooter, but I was a scorer. So if I got the ball, let's say inside the 3-point line, I'm slower than you or whoever's guarding me. But one jab step and 2 dribbles, and I turn my shoulders, and I have big, strong shoulders, and I'm right at the basket on you, and there's nothing you can do. You're cooked, and I'm going to score on you. Like that was kind of the game I played, and so I really liked Chris Webber's game. No, I did not call timeouts when I didn't have them. No, that's not true. How dare you? How dare you?
He wasn't afraid to call a couple timeouts, a couple 2-3 timeouts.
A couple 2-3. That's absolutely right. Let's get to a couple more drinks here. I don't want to get too far behind. Dougie Freshness says, "Happy birthday, Beef! Drinks for my friends. Cheers." Thank you, Dougie. Yeah, they're going to get us hammered tonight, Peter. I just have a feeling about that.
I love
it. Jerry O'Sullivan says, "Happy birthday, Beef. All I got you was the super chat." That's plenty, Jerry.
That's all you can ask for.
Gordo says, 108ers and Gabriel versus the Bums and street sign basketball. I'm down. Let's do it. I would love to set this up. If someone films this would be hilarious in my opinion. So
I'm in. I'm in for the content. I would love it. We would get bodied out of the. I was going to say out of the court, but there is no court. Out of the street, we'd get bodied.
Gabe's a secret weapon. That's what it is. Taco Gladiator says, "Happy birthday, Loaf. Great haircut, Peter. Maybe, question mark."
Jared,
what the heck, Jared?
Jared loves the
coming
bus
in
balls.
hot, man.
Loves the bus balls, that guy.
Thank you so much. We've got Mailman Jack. He says, "Happy birthday, Beef. It's so cool. Your birthday is also my wife and my wedding anniversary." Oh, cheers,
wow,
Jack.
wife?
Congrats, my friend.
Wedding anniversary, Bronco chase. I know that's third year anniversary.
That was my 16th birthday. Yeah, that's remember that. And last one, Little Yumper, Feliz cumpleaños, al pan de res, salud. Thank you. That motherfucker's trying to make me speak Spanish. You and Senor, you guys on my shit list now.
This is the reverse of MSS doing the Italian food. So if you got the super chat, let's put them all in Spanish. That'd be
Son
fun.
of a bitch.
So moving on from high school, and I know you. So you had mentioned you like you played high school, you played basketball in high school, and you were a decent enough student and stuff like that. Something that I noticed, I think you had mentioned it on a podcast, and I know you had mentioned it in person. You didn't drink until you're 21. And I know a couple guys that went to De La Salle, a couple of my cousins and stuff like that. For it being at that time an all boys school and stuff like that, people were partying, front porch, backyards,
it was a drinking culture. Yeah,
people were partying. So when you said like you didn't drink until you were 21, that took me by surprise. Just because knowing us now, we like to have a couple beers at a game or a tailgate or anything like that. So when you said, I didn't drink it until I was 21, I was like, whoa. I wonder if there was a specific reason behind that or anything.
I mean, I guess there's probably a couple. And you mentioned it was a drinking culture. Like the other guys I'm friends with, the neighborhood guys, not so much the guys I played basketball with, but they had 40 Thursdays. And what 40 Thursdays were was we got out at 1:20, and they would go somewhere. And normal time leaving school is 2:50 or whatever. And they would go somewhere, and they would get a bunch of 40s, and they would drink those things real fast before it was time to like go home in the regular time. So they would make use of the time drinking 40s. Yeah, part of it is just like the typical oldest child being cautious and just like, oh, I know I got shit to take care of. I have these things going on, and I just don't really, I shouldn't be doing that. I think the other part of it too is, I think I've shared this before. Treasy and I's father's an alcoholic. He's completely sober these days, and when I say he's an alcoholic, I don't want to put it out there like he ruined our lives or anything. No, he was a functioning alcoholic. Like we know a lot of these people that are functioning alcoholics. He was always there for us as kids. Our relationship never really got strained very much. Occasionally, you might get when you're getting a little older, you kind of get into it with the old man, but it's not necessarily just about that, but sometimes could be a little bit about that. So there was some of that, and then thirdly, as and people don't know, there was no Uber. There's no cab. So you can't go out. Like someone has to drive. Someone will be behind the wheel of the car. And I felt more comfortable if I'm behind the wheel and I know I'm not drinking. Then I know we're at least safe from that standpoint. We got no concerns right there. And the fellas loved it. They'd kick me a few bucks. And truth be told, I don't want to give away all the secrets, but maybe I should to somebody out there suspecting right now who's driving their friends around. Look, when all your friends are buzzed up and out of commission at the end of the night, there's a lot of girls just hanging around, and they might have had too many drinks too, and they might want to, a little action at the end of the night, and then the BeefLoaf could slide right in there. So that, it could be good for you being the driver, being a designated driver. Nothing wrong with that.
This is a man with a plan, is that what it sounds like?
Well, you got to take advantage of your situation.
But you do make a good point, because there was no Uber back in our day. Like when Johnny and I turned 21 or something, like you had to, hey, motherfucker, you're the one in charge. You're not drinking. Yeah. We'll either draw straws or do like a card game to figure out who's driving. Yeah. And like no Ubers. And to a bigger extent, like no Uber, no even like Tinder or like kids these days. Now we're sound old. I'm going to go on, kids these days got it easy. But like, it's crazy.
They got different struggles, but they didn't have our struggles. They didn't have our struggles back then. Yeah, we would do, and once we were 21 and everyone drank, then the way you would do it is you wouldn't have a guy who would be maybe like completely sober for the night, but that guy had a limit of how many drinks he could have if he was the driver. He had maybe 3 beers he could have the whole night, and they got to be on it. And then you got to, if you went over that, you're done. You're leaving that car somewhere. You're figuring out some alternate way to get home. You're sleeping on someone's couch or whatever. So it was more complicated back then than just now. Like call the Uber, get it, go home, and then assuming on your way back the Uber actually picks you up, which it didn't pick me up on Thursday. I'm still pissed at that Uber driver.
Can we talk about that? Like you acted like it's impossible to get an Uber from downtown Chicago on a random Thursday.
I came up, I ordered the Uber. It was saying it was there, and I was like, it's nowhere around here. And like, they didn't call or anything. And I'm looking blocks in either direction. I'm like, I don't see a car pulled up with flashers on goddamn anywhere. I'm like, what's going on here? So what I always do is I start walking towards home. Because I think, well, worst things worst, Bologna. I'll walk all the way home if I have to. And then Mrs. Beef reaches out. She's like, hey, where are you? Like, the show's starting right now. I'm like, oh, all this shit happened. She's like, I'm coming to get you. I'll come get you right now. Like, I'll come get your drunk ass and get you out in there and put you on the show, which I was hammered off my ass. And you know what? I thought I did a bad job. Some people told me it was totally fine or whatever. And then I got a friend who texts us like his comments in the show afterwards. He can't stop giving me shit about how hammered I was in that show. So I deserve it, you know.
So, I would say I follow you guys fairly closely. You know, I'm usually in the comments and commenting along and watching. The reason I noticed is not because of anything on the show. Is I noticed because you weren't tweeting after the show. You probably went straight to bed, and I was like, "Oh,
I went up." That's a good call. I went upstairs. I made myself something to eat because I hadn't eaten dinner because I had been at this event or whatever. And I'm like, I'm gonna eat something or whatever. I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna go to sleep with all the anxiety of how drunk I was on that show that I don't remember all of it. And then I'll wake up in the morning. I'll probably feel not completely better, but a little bit better. And so, yeah, you're right. I didn't tweet afterwards. I wasn't like retweeting it. Hey, we talked about this, blah, blah, doing all the promotion. I saw my partners also didn't retweet and do any promotion. Those motherfuckers. I got to do everything? The son of a bitches. I can't wait till we start talking about them later on. So.
Put the team on your shoulders. I think it's a good time to transition to actual content because that's what we usually do. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, is like whenever we see each other, it's either, hey, I saw this, or did you read that, or like I have an idea.
Did you check that out? Or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what did you think of how they did that thing? You know, like
so. Before we even get to like the start of From the 108, where do the nicknames come from?
Okay, the nicknames when we were discussing like we should have a blog or we should have something that we put some stuff out there. And the origin story is more like we realized that 108 became a meeting place for like our friends that were at games and stuff. We're younger than this, and our friends are coming through and like, oh, let's come hang out. And not a lot of people sat there. We're like, we should like dictate some of this and bring it out to the people. Teresa and I were both sensitive of the fact that we have careers and we're higher up in companies, you know, and it's like, well, you want to, let's protect this at least for a little bit and just see how this goes. And so we thought we should have, you know, pseudonyms or nicknames or whatever. My Sock Summer already had a blog called My Sock Summer when he was trying to do 50 games for under $500. Back when that was a challenge. Nowadays, you probably do 50 games for $200 or whatever, trying to go to Sox games. So at that point, we're like, let's put some nicknames together. Some pseudonyms. So one night, my wife and I are like spitballing a little bit, just some different things or laughing or whatever. And my daughter, Bonita, she's like, well, what about BeefLoaf? And immediately we're both like, that's the name right there. The BeefLoaf is the name. So as my daughter, she's probably 6 years old or whatever, just like chiming into the conversation, like listening, and like, okay, that should, you know, that could be a name. And we were like, oh, immediately, that's absolutely the name. For Teresa, he sat on it a little while. He didn't like come up with nothing or whatever. And so we had to start putting pressure on him, Bologna. So what I have right here, I'm gonna list you out some of these names because he had a list and I had a list that we had put together to like, all right, you got to pick something because we're going to launch this blog really soon. And I pulled the original emails. So here's his list of what his names could potentially be.
Before you go, I'm just going to assume these are all Star Wars related.
No, they're all over the place. Like it was like, you know, whatever, brain dump to do all this stuff, right? So here's Teresa's list. His 5 names that he listed 5 names. Manoso Torres, Sexy Grimace,
all right,
Baseball Jones, Ready for Extras, the mayor of Drugsachusets. Okay, so those were his names that he had, whatever. So and this email comes in first, and I see this email. I'm like, these names all stink in my personal opinion. And so I don't want to tell my brother that your idea sucks. What I want to do is provide a better idea, and maybe he'll come up with it. He'll take this idea. So then I have 5 names, and Jackie said, "I love Baseball Jones." Like, it could have worked.
Can I before we get going? If someone wants to get into the 108 tournament this upcoming season, they got to create a Twitter account with these names. I want to see Baseball Grimace as a Twitter account right now.
Yeah, Sexy Grimace.
Oh,
Baseball
Sexy
Jones
Grimace.
and Sexy Grimace. And yes, Russell Torres is a shout out to Digstown because that was the last fighter in the fights. Yeah, absolutely. So then I'm like, I don't know. I don't really like these names. I'm like, you need something better. So here's my list of names. I come up with 6 names for him. And obviously one of them gets chosen as the final name. But my list is the Midnight Mumbler, Miracoles, which I really liked. I thought Miracoles was a great, like, that was my number one on this list. I was like,
that's unbelievable.
That's your fucking name right there. But he did not like it. He was not a fan of it. Jesus, because there were people that used to call him the Jesus because he had a longer beard before, and he's like a skinny guy or whatever. Son of Dad. Son of Dad is from Seinfeld. That was like the killer or whatever in the one serial killer episode. Brown liquor, but spelled like licking something, not like liquor, you know.
Liquor.
And then Teresa. And so when I sent that email through, he was like, "Oh, Teresa is 100% it." And I'm like, "All right, I can live with it." But Miracoles, really, in my heart, Bologna, Miracoles is the name right there. You know,
that is beautiful.
I'm sad he didn't take. Yes. Think of how far he could have. He would have 50,000 followers if his name was Miracoles right now. You know, there's no question in my mind.
Oh man! So you guys it starts off as a blog, right? And you guys are just talking White Sox and recapping games and putting your thoughts out to the universe.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Josh Nelson that said that you guys got to start doing the video show?
Yes. So initially we were like, well, we're going to do it in the blog, and then we'll do Twitter. We'll do the Twitter thing, whatever. So. And when we put the blog out there, I mean, shocked to no one read it. Obviously, nobody reads the shit. You're throwing like, oh, we got great ideas, whatever. Yeah, so does fucking everybody else. Everyone's got great ideas. I explained the context, Treasy. Shut the fuck up. Watch the show if you're paying attention. So we put the blogs out there, Baloney. No one read it. No one cared. And I shit you not, if we got 50 hits on a blog, we were like, yes, this thing is fucking. People are actually reading our fucking thoughts here, you know. It's like, and that was kind of like the start of the blog there. And as we got going a little further and further, we started getting more consistent readership. Now, My Sox Summer tried to put our blogs everywhere. He'd try to throw it in Reddit, forums, all this shit. Man, we would get shit on so hard everywhere, man. And usually it was me who got the brunt of the shitting on. Like my style, just kind of everything about what I was doing. People absolutely fucking hated. And so it didn't really deter us because we were kind of like, we're just starting out at this and we think it's fun. And and I've heard you say it before, as long as it doesn't feel like a job, I'm going to keep doing this. And like, that's my approach too, is like, I don't care. I want to put these thoughts out there. What helped, I think, at least for me personally, was we were tweeting, especially Treasy and I were tweeting a lot out on the 108 account to try to get it built up. And what was happening was we were getting interactions from people that actually know some shit about baseball. And that was like encouraging, like maybe we should write a little more about actual White Sox stuff, not just like us making fun of White Sox stuff. Maybe we should like say, oh, here's some analysis I did, or here's some theories I have or thoughts or whatever. And like, it helped us that like Brian Billick and Tom Fornelli's White Sox account,
right,
and White Sox Dave and Nelson and Nick Schaefer and people who know shit about the White Sox were interacting with us and being like, oh, okay, I like the interesting thought, or here's why I disagree with you or whatever. And it started to kind of build up a little bit of buzz that like people would actually come to our blogs. And some of these people occasionally would retweet our blogs. Oh, this is an interesting idea here, like that. And so we realized that like maybe going with the humor straight up first was a little too corny. Show that you have some game first and let people realize it. And then you can come over the top with the humor, which we thought was good. And it turned out fine. Like the humor was pretty good, but like it meant something to like, okay, these guys aren't total idiots. They have some thoughts here and they should be respected.
Now, at what point did you, or whether it's you or you guys as a group, realize like, hey, this has some legs, or like, hey, we could, keep going with this before like, you were saying that there's 50 readers or 50 clicks and you're happy with it. But at some point you got to realize like, hey, we're funny. We know what we're doing. And this is gaining traction. Like, did you get to a moment where like, hey, this is actually working?
We did kind of in various steps. Like, I would say the first like thing we were like, holy shit, this is real, was one night I was just tweeting some random bullshit, probably out of the 108 account. And I tweeted something about like, who's going to come with the best mustache this year, like Tyler Saladino. And Saladino liked it. And then he quote tweeted it and he was like, let's do a mustache competition. Whoever on Sox Twitter can get the best mustache, I will give opening day tickets to. And we were like, holy shit, like our player is interacting with our fucking shit. And we put a blog out there and for the competition, and a lot of people read it, and we was like, okay, we're really going somewhere. And it was like, okay, there is interaction from the community here, not just like small stuff or whatever. Like, so that was kind of like touch point number one for us as far as like a brand. And that almost like coincided pretty closely with Baderbrow reaching out to us and kind of like wanting to engage us and eventually hiring us to do stuff for them. Now, Baderbrow hired us initially on just a beer only deal. So they were giving us product initially to start, but they knew we could get 30 people there to tailgate. So it was like, okay, well 108 guys, you guys become our flagship to the White Sox audience or whatever. And so we thought that's pretty cool. We don't have a podcast. We didn't really even have a product to shop them at the time when we were starting this negotiation. This is where MSS and I were like, well, we need something. And we didn't really want to do a podcast. So we're like, we're in my backyard and we're both looking at my hot tub. We're like, what if we just do a video right there? And then no one does that. Who does that? Like, we'll go to the hot tub and we'll do a goddamn video. And so we're like, fine, we'll sell that to them. It's like, you give us beer, give us this much beer on the weekends, all the stuff. We'll show up to your tailgates and do this stuff. So they gave us that, and they gave us like a private room too at their establishments. Like, you guys want to have events here, you can have events here. And so like that was kind of like a touch point there, which led to Josh Nelson and Sox Machine approaching us like, hey, you guys have a sponsor, you have this spot, let's do a party after Sox Machine, and we'll have all after Sox Fest, and have all these people here, and we'll do this stuff. So we built up like a panel, invited all these fucking other bloggers and all this shit. And most of the people don't even do the shit no more, or like they would not be on the short list of like people you would invite to like speak on something if you were doing one of these now. But it was a cool time, like sort of like exploring what can be done there. So like early on, that was the stuff where we were like, we kind of have something here. This is we should continue on with this, as long as we still enjoy it.
And then you guys transitioned into the video show.
We did. So we were doing Sunday Soak for a while, which is video only, whatever. And we wouldn't even have YouTube, really. We were putting this shit on Twitter. What was it, Periscope back in the day? It's like, we're just it's like out there, and it might go away forever. So like we probably have some great Sunday Soak shows that are like an hour and a half, us talking random bullshit, and they're gone. They're just you can't even find them. And we get to a point where Josh Nelson had an idea about like doing almost like a plug and play radio station of all the Sox Twitter podcasts, And so he approached us. He's like, you guys got to be involved in this. You guys have to do something here. And it's like, well, we don't want to do a podcast or whatever. And he guilted the shit out of Treasy because Treasy has experience with the bands and all this stuff. It's like, you know how to hook up the audio. Just get the thing hooked up, record some shit, and put it out there. And, we could kind of get something going, That idea never fucking took off. Even though, like, let me tell you something, Bologna. If I were programming a certain brand that is in the West Loop and does a lot of YouTube stuff, but could be doing 24 hours worth of content, I'd be reaching out to a bunch of these spots and say, can we just play your stuff? Because they could be playing all night and they could be paying a small amount to various people and be doing this exact idea because there's enough that exists and enough that's good.
Time out. You don't want to put that out in the universe, Loaf, because I have a foolproof plan to do just that. Okay. If Matt Zawoski's listening and Josh Nelson's listening, and I know you're on the show.
Yeah.
There's easy ways to do that, and I feel like it would make sense for a company like the company in the West Loop, but maybe some people don't need that, and they can do it on their own.
But yeah, man, maybe it's an idea that should exist outside of that, but it's surprised me. Josh is it's a good idea. Yeah, it's a little surprising. There's no tapping in the and it could work across sports. I mean, it's not just a White Sox thing there. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. Like, but at the time we were like, well, we don't know what we're doing. We'll try this. We'll do this podcast thing. And like when we first started out, Loney, I shit you not. These shows were 3 fucking hours long. And now, one thing we do well, and we generally have done well, is we prep well, okay? I think most podcasts don't prep enough. We prep too goddamn much, so we would be spitting out 3 hours worth of shit. And, like, the early listeners, it's funny, people who have listened since the beginning, which there aren't a lot of them left still hanging around, but you'll see, like, Matt Ramsey on Twitter, he'll put a tweet out there, 3 hour show tonight, motherfucker. Like, so, like, go back to the old school and do that old shit where you were doing all that. But it was good for us to get the reps because we had no experience doing any of that shit. We never kind of wanted to do it. And we didn't want to sound like idiots, so we had to be prepared. We wanted to be funny, and we wanted to have, White Sox thoughts and stuff. And I'm glad we've reined that in, because who the hell wants to listen to us for 3 hours? I don't know. I mean, people did, but I don't know why they would want to. But now we've kind of reined that shit in, and we have an understanding, I think, of how to do a podcast. But early on, it was just like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just fucking around. See, they're in the comments. I missed the 4-hour podcast. Senor Sox, those 3-hour shows fucking ruled. maybe we should do one once a quarter or something like that.
Bring them back.
They were tough.
So I would consider you guys, and I think a lot of people in the comments would consider you guys. I mean, if White Sox Twitter is a cesspool, but I said it's more of a dysfunctional family or whatever. Yeah. You guys are what I would consider like the quarterbacks of it. You guys are involved in all angles, and you guys are plugged in. You fostered this community. I would consider it like something that you've helped grow tremendously, and now us as the Bums, like we're part of like a little piece of that. But
you guys do a great job of continuing on the initial thing we were trying to start there, for sure. You guys get the concept perfectly, and what it really is like, if you're going to build community, you got to build community. You can't just include only the people that you see eye to eye with on absolutely everything. It's got to be everybody. Everyone has to feel like they could have a stake in this. Now, there are limits to this, right? Like, if there are bad actors or people doing things that are trying to harm other people, yeah, they got to be eliminated. We've had instances of that going on. But Treasy and I, like, growing up, we were always comfortable having whatever friends we thought should be our friends. And our parents were always like, you judge everyone on their own merit, and don't worry what the fuck anyone else thinks. And we have always acted that way, and we still act that way. And so that's why you'll see we're friendly with people who absolutely fucking hate each other's guts. But I think that's the best way to build a community, because if you're closing out certain groups just by proxy, that's bad. You cannot do that. Like, that's a poor way to build a community. And I see you guys doing the whiskey at Comiskey. You guys, it's everyone come. Invite everybody. Everyone can be here. And next thing you know, everyone is there. Everyone is hanging out together. And yeah, they don't all get along. That's okay. That group can huddle up over there and talk and have a few drinks. And that group can huddle up over there. Everyone, they act fine when they're in person. When they're in the lot B with you guys, when they're in the 108 with us, no problems.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like, one, you foster the community, but you're also a good like a litmus tester or a good judge of character. But is it something that you guys are purposely, and I think you just answered it, but you are more like Switzerland, right? Like you won't, like, if you see these two groups going at it, it's not your job to stop it, right? Like it's almost
not my battle to say who's right. I might agree with one side more than other, but it's not really my place to be jumping in there on either side. I don't. Yeah, we don't see it that way unless someone's being harmed. Someone's being harmed, then maybe we should jump in there and stop them being harmed, right? But otherwise, if people are just bickering about shit, we generally don't care. And two, we might not even think about it enough to care about who's right about whatever the fuck. People get mad about the dumbest things possible. It's like, I can't deal with all that, man. I got a stressful job. I'm coming out here to hang out and relax. You guys want to get mad at each other on Twitter? Great. I'll light the fuse, and you guys go ahead. I'll get out of the way, and then you guys go ahead and fucking tear it up,
Now, you mentioned like My Sox Summer posting to different places and trying to like build the blog that way. I've had conversations with them, and while you guys are beloved on White Sox Twitter, Reddit might hate you guys more than anyone else I've seen, specifically White Sox Twitter, Reddit, and stuff like that. How do you handle, or like, is it something that like you purposely like, it's no sweat off my back? Like, I'm not even going to worry about these guys over here because they're not a problem to me? Or does it bother you at some point to where like, what the fuck's wrong with these guys?
I actively fucking love when people hate something that I do, especially when it's the weak form of hate. Like you'll see it occasionally. People will try to come at us, they'll subtweet us, or they'll talk about us without naming us on their podcast. And they always go for all. These guys just think that drinking and having a good time is like, go ahead and come at one of my takes, baby. Come at, because you know what I got going here. I'll come right back at you. They don't want it. They don't want none of that smoke. I love it. I wish I had more of this, Bologna. I wish there were more people that would come at 108. Give us all the smoke. We'll take it. And MSS has been getting in the dirt with people lately on hilarious stuff to me. And it's like, I'll just sit back and watch. Like, are these people people were getting into arguments with him about whether or not Jason Benetti was fired, which he obviously was not. And the fact that people were getting so mad and emotional, and we were laughing about it on the side. We're like, well, you can't. People believe something no matter what happened. They'll just believe it, and you're going to yell at you no matter what. He's like, yeah, but they should know that this is not the truth. It's like, fucking who cares? Like, let him get fired up. But I like that he gets in there and he's fucking mixing it up. And I wish we got more smoke. I wish more people would come at us. We're kind of in a weird spot, though, Baloney, because if you're a smaller blog or podcast or whatever, and you want to come at us, you want to hit us, right? One of two things are going to happen. One, we'll likely ignore you, and so you will get no traction. But also probably what happens is all the people that we're already friends with will look and see you doing it and say, that person's an asshole and we want nothing to do with them. So it's like suicide for anyone who's like kind of at our level or below to do that because you look like big assholes unless you have a real good point, which people rarely do because the White Sox takes are solid generally. And yeah, we do some sketchy humor sometimes, but there's nothing that's over the line where we're trying to harm anyone. We're messing with each other mostly, like in the humor stuff. So it's something where I wish more radio producers would subtweet us, and I wish they'd come on the show and talk about it. Right. That would be fun, but it's just probably not going to happen very much. I think we're in a weird spot where we don't get the amount of haters I wish we had.
Now you talk about your takes being solid, and why I do agree with that. The White Sox team itself is dog shit, and they've been dog shit for the better part of 2.5 years, and where we have the luxury of, like, on our show, like, if we don't want to talk White Sox, we'll go to Bears or we'll go to the Chicago Sky or make up a nonsense segment while you guys like grind away. And I give credit to you guys and a bunch of other blogs or podcasts that have to talk White Sox and predominantly White Sox. How hard of a grind is it I feel like it's got to be like pulling teeth at this point.
Maybe we think about it differently, but for us, these times, the lean times, are where you can be the most creative. I felt like when the White Sox were good, it was too easy for everyone else. And for us, we were kind of mailing it in a little bit because we're like, our real creativity won't matter. The team's popular. Everyone who has a White Sox blog is getting hits and looks and listens or whatever. And we weren't as strong doing what we were doing. When the team's bad, when they're down, when they're in a rebuild, you have to really be creative to do this. Like Josh is right, we're covering history. Yeah, I don't. Here's what I think about it. We're covering a baseball season, and we're going to think of some concept that lights up me, Teresa E, and my Sox summer. And we're going to, something that engages us, and we want to talk about it. And we're also not going to like look at what is everyone else talking about. We have to talk about that. We have never been of that standpoint. We have never been. It's very rare that we're like, oh, well, this thing happened. We absolutely have to talk about it. As a group, if we don't care about something, we think something's dumb. Like as an example, the voting Martin Maldonado into the All-Star game. We could give two shits about it. We think it's like the dumbest thing in the world. We're not talking about that. That's so fucking stupid. Enjoy it. Do it if you want to do it. But for us, it's not lighting us up. And there's a lot of things like that where, oh, this is a big controversy. And we look at each other like, yeah, I don't have anything to say about that. It's dumb. Let's do this other thing we like and we want to do. I think it takes more creativity when the teams are bad. And it gives you more opportunity to flex like, oh, let's try this thing. Let's do this other thing. That's what makes it fun for us is like, oh, man, we got a real unique thing we're going to do right here. We did it the last show, and I was drunk off my ass. But we were like, let's take the young pitchers. Which one would you hire at Brazos or Bang Bros or whatever the fuck? Yeah, I mean, like, that's an outside-the-box fucking thing. You can't do that when the team is in first place. No one's doing that. Like, you got to talk about the regular shit. But when they stink, you can talk about whatever you fucking want, and that gives you a lot of leverage as far as the content creator.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I give credit, like I said, to you guys, because sometimes it's like, we're all out of ideas. But maybe we're not as creative as yous. And that's
maybe you just gotta rip apart what you think the idea should be.
Right.
And go to, because you guys are incredibly naturally creative, especially the videos you guys make during the 108 tourney is I couldn't think of all this shit you guys are doing. Like, think through that lens and say, now sports. And boom, there you go. You kind of got the idea, in my personal opinion.
Makes sense. Now we've talked about
let me smash a few drinks here. First off, Josh Nelson says Bologna has hair.
I know.
What the fuck?
It got so hot today. I mean, it's hot in Chicago right now, and it's going to be hot all week.
There's no question.
I got off of work early, and I'm like, I'm going straight to get a haircut because I'm like, I won't survive the rest of the week without a haircut. So yeah, I got no hat on today.
I respect it. Keep that hair out there. Our guy Fathers Up said, "Were silent movies hard to follow?" Question mark. How pumped were you when the automobile was invented? Happy birthday, bud. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Yeah. So you know, your body's breaking down more than mine, so you better take it easy. You know? Keep it up. And last one is Prez. Prez says, "Imagine recording a podcast on your birthday. Couldn't be me. Happy birthday, BeefLoaf. Waiting with my shirt untucked and lot beef for you. Snap a pic."
I mean, that picture of
Prez, that's how we build community. All right, we take a shot like you'll never forget that, right? Every time you see me, you'll give me a hug because of that picture. So cheers.
And it's also something we've both talked about. But if we're not busting your balls, we don't like you.
That's correct.
Like the fact that Praz could, see that picture out there instead of getting pissed off, laugh about it. That's the kind of people you want at a tailgate.
That's correct.
You want to hang out with, or you sit at a baseball game with.
That's right, and that's kind of what you see at the tailgates. What you see in the section. These people can mess with each other. They give each other a hard time about something. Someone brings up something from months ago or years ago that happened. And it's like, those are good times, and that's kind of what you're really shooting for, especially when you're not, the product has to be secondary for all this stuff. Really, you got to think about them as separate units. Like, people like to go to White Sox games as a entertainment value or whatever. And so all of what we're doing is separate than the team being really good. If the team's really good, there are going to be a lot of people in these seats anyway. But if it's not, then it's going to be us in there, and then we need to have a good time with each other.
Now, we talked last time we were at a game together. I talked and gave you credit about how, like, you, Treasy, and My Sox Summer have just a natural rapport. You've known each other forever, and you guys are so personable outside of just talking White Sox, where a lot of the times, like, Julie's busy or someone's busy, like, we're busy, like, we'll tune in for the banter, and then I'll go back and listen to the White Sox talk in the morning at work or something like that. But, like, the banter and the nonsense segments at the end, is there ever a thought of being like, we're so good at this, maybe we're going to do something outside of White Sox Twitter, or just like a different type of podcast, or the Three Things or something like that?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, if I were looking at, we've had people say that to us before. That's, man, you guys are too talented to tie your flag to this shitty ass team over here. But ultimately, like, as far as just sports, baloney, like, it would take us. Treasy and I were talking about it because we're like, well, what if we wanted to do a different sport? We want to know it as well as we know the White Sox, the way we feel like we can get feedback on the White Sox, which we think is pretty in depth. We're not at a level like a Sox machine but our takes would not get laughed out the room by those people. And so that's kind of like the level we want to be at. We want to have good takes, solid takes, things that we've observed or whatever, that, no one that is serious about it would laugh out of the room. And he and I were like, it would probably take us, we could probably get up and running on the Bulls. It would take us a year of really fucking studying and trying to figure them out. But I think we could, because we both played and we have a lot of experience kind of watching Bulls games and stuff, like getting up with the current stats and all that stuff. But to what point? How much would that really serve us to get up there on the sports? From the other side, like the goofiness, the banter looks like it's random nonsense, but it's really not. I shouldn't peel behind the curtain, but here's the secret to having great banter. All right, I give one nugget here. What you want to do with a segment like that, and you'll notice why the segments almost always focus on MSS and I, because we're the most likely to be fine with not only the other hosts, but the entire comments shitting all over us. What you need to find is some portion of your day, week, vacation, whatever, that is extraordinary, that everyone will laugh in your face about. Self-deprecating humor sells everywhere, and if you could find something that lights up the other hosts and will light up the comments, that's the thing you go with. Most people don't care about your mundane day, and it's tough to talk about that stuff, but if you find a little nugget where you're like, I know they're going to kill me over this thing. Like, when I went to the doctor, all the weird shit that happened about me being taller and all that, and my blood pressure going, I knew those guys would murder me on that. And that's the stuff you want to bring there. You know, MSS almost pissing his pants driving home from with his daughter. Like, that's the shit he knows will kill him on. And so that's where you bring those things in there and you know you got it. You know you're going to nail it. And so, like, to me, that's the secret to those segments is just being open enough where you know everyone's going to murder you on this. Don't worry about it. Just let them come.
The elevator fart story, Teresa story. Like, that's a perfect example.
An all-timer, right? And he could have hid that, right? That's embarrassing in some ways or whatever. No way. He couldn't wait to tell that, right? That's the type of things you want to get out there for sure.
Now, I feel like, I mean, we're close to an hour, so I do want to, don't waste any more of your time. We're celebrating.
Okay, we can go a little bit over. We got some. I get one more drink here. There's someone just came in a drink. And it was Jay Zell says beef nut. Oh, hello. No, not tonight. Thank you, though.
What do you mean not tonight? It's your birthday.
No, I'm chill out tonight. I'll leave the missus alone tonight.
I want to talk a little bit about like the future of the 108. Like, is there ever like I mentioned, like you guys have your platform now and you guys are fostering the growth. Is there anything you could give us of like, man, I really wish I see us doing this in the next 3-4 years or something like that?
I mean, there's things I wish we'd do, but the problem always ends up being like, we're maxed out with regards to capacity, for the three of us. We realized a couple years ago, we're not adding to this group, right? We'll do more collaborations with people, and actually it's something we've been discussing too, is like, let's collab more and then we can get a little more mileage out of this. But we tried to do an intern program. We've tried some other stuff and just realized no one is going to give the voice that you want to give. And you won't be able to control it in the way you want to unless it's the three of us. So we kind of know we're kind of maxed out by timing there. I personally think, and you mentioned it in the last segment, I think pulling back a little bit on White Sox stuff is probably in our best interest. Only because I think there's avenues we can go in that are not necessarily, like we're expert sports people on, that is more like mundane. Like My Sox Summer recently did a series, like a YouTube short series of him thrifting, right? And people fucking loved it, right? Yeah. We got a lot of feedback from people like, oh man, that was really cool. That was interesting or whatever. I think there's more of like that type of stuff we could venture into. I would love it if My Sox Summer hosted his own live stream. And even if he only did it once a quarter or something, whatever, I think that's like a worthwhile endeavor. I like that Treasy does the Star Wars show. I think like having more like of those types of things, different things, are valuable to us. I have offered both of them this platform to interview anyone they want. They have different interests than I do. And so maybe they have an interview with someone, 40-minute interview or whatever, and they haven't taken up on me yet. So like that would be nice too. Have them sub in on the au jus and like, Teresi interview some local music person or whatever. So I think there's avenues to go. We're always going to be tied to the White Sox in some way. I don't think we need to be tied so tightly to them. I think we've gotten to the point where we understand how to do this a little better, and we can kind of do a little more stuff. And I think that's the approach. I think I would like to see us spreading our wings a little bit, not necessarily in sports. Although if we do other sports, we'll do it the way we did it. We had Scott Lewis from Barber Chairs Network come on and do. We can do that level of, okay, we'll do another sport where we have a guest on in a sport we're passionate about. We can ask some questions. Like, I think there's room to do that, kind of, but I don't see us like spending a real lot of time. Hang on a second. He says, "Happy birthday, BPS. I would love some 108 Bulls content." I mean, if we could foster the time, I'd be down with it. Thank you. Appreciate the drink there. But I think that's kind of the future. I think short form video. Uncle Elon is begging us to do short form video on his app. So I think there's a lot of room for that. I think anyone who's busting into it now, like I see Maddie Spagnola doing a lot of it, and she is right to be doing a lot of it. She is doing it in a smart way. If you want to break in now, those short form videos are nice. Like I would like to see. I shouldn't speak out of turn about any individual person, but I see that Elijah kid that works with Future Sox. Elijah, make some short videos, 1 minute on Twitter about a specific prospect, things you think about them, blah, blah, blah. Throw it out there. Just fucking start landing those YouTube shorts or whatever the fuck. I would do that if I were you. So Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Let me get this drink and then we can get back to it. Bologna. Nathan
Cheers,
Sheba,
Nathan.
longtime guy, says the Easter Bunny Santa Claus. Now the 108 is off the cuff. Is there anything I can believe in anymore? Some of it's planned,
Vaccine.
Nathan. Some of it's planned, and some of it is just in our mind planned that we know we want to do a certain thing. So thank you, Nathan.
Now, you talked about Uncle Elon, and this was one of my last questions. I'm sure, we both have great support systems. Miss Beef's in the comments. I know Julie's listening, and, they tolerate us being on Twitter 24/7. We are glued to this thing, and it's something that's part of my nature now, and I'm sure it's the same thing with you.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a plan B if Uncle Elon blows this thing up to smithereens? Because I'm worried about that might be coming. Now, I'm not saying in the next couple of days, but if Uncle Elon turns the lights off, what are we doing, Beef?
Okay, so when it was initially when he bought the thing, there was all this scurrying. Oh, we're gonna go to Discord, we're gonna Blue Sky, or whatever. I never bought into any of that shit. The idea that I had, and my Sox Summer is in my camp with this. Treasy not as much. Is we go back to the old days, baby, and we go forums. We set up a forum, a White Sox Twitter forum, in my opinion, would be awesome. And people who aren't really interested in all the Twitter shit, they could get in there. They can get the content from people they want. They can chat and get in threads they want to get into. Old school forums have a certain offering that they'll provide you. And I always thought I was always jealous because Sox Machine has their own site. And the comments for a blog are fucking laborious. Yeah. They're huge, right? Everyone comments there. They don't comment on Twitter. For us, we throw a blog out, we put it on Twitter. We get 1 million comments on Twitter. We don't get them on our website. We get 3 comments or whatever the fuck, So I think going real old school like that is probably the approach I would prefer. And I did it recently. I'm not going to name the forum, but a forum that I'm familiar with. I had interviewed Julie Swyka last week. Which I thought was, she shared a lot. I was
her talking about the score and her peeling back the curtain on why she left and stuff like that was fantastic. Listen,
oh my god, I'm and Bologna, people don't even realize. People now don't realize she was a pioneer. There were no women on Sports Talk getting 4 hours doing a Sunday baseball show. This shit didn't happen. She was fucking doing it back then. It's and it was wild to me that you're gonna come on, you're gonna interview, let me interview you. It was insane shit. But I put it on this forum that I know is into all that stuff. And they ate it the fuck up. They were like, oh, this is great. We wanted to hear these things. Oh, who was the person that did her dirty? They were all trying to guess. And it was crazy shit. It was yeah, there is still room for this, in my opinion, kind of smaller community situation. And I see the comments talking about White Sox Interactive. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. But, maybe even smaller than that. Maybe the Twitter group just kind of getting together. If Twitter broke, I think it would hurt so many people that, there wouldn't be a replacement. There's not going to be a replacement. We do other stuff. We do Instagram or whatever. It's not the same. You can't get your thoughts out in the same way that you can on this app. So you just have to hope it succeeds. No one's going to Blue Sky. I'm sorry. If people went to Blue Sky, no one cares. No one's going to go over there and sign up for that or whatever other fake Twitters that are made up. None of that's happening. I don't think it'll be something totally different in my opinion.
Yeah. Although I am worried. The forum sounds great. I mean, if I'm an old school, emo music forum back when I was a teenager, I could hop right back into a forum. We might lose the younger crowd, the 20-something.
We might. That's why we need Twitter to kind of drag them over there. Yeah. I mean, truth be told, Bologna, in my opinion, we're not dragging in enough of the younger crowd. I've been thinking about this with the 108 tourney a lot. It's I've got to skew a little younger because I think we're not getting enough of the young folks. The 11th Ward crew, who people don't even know that there's fake. Those are young guys. So those guys are in their early 20s, doing a bunch of bits or whatever. I want more of that kind of interjected into this because we're getting up there in years. I admitted it before the show. I'm 46. I want some younger people to carry on this lineage and be having fun on the internet and doing stuff. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah. The Bob Tolans of the world. I thought maybe for a minute there it was just one guy controlling 11 accounts. But if you're saying it's multiple people, I believe
multiple people. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
But yeah, Beef, happy birthday. That's all I got for you. I think those are all the questions I had written down and things like that. But
Baloney, I appreciate
you
man.
giving me the platform.
Yeah, you know what? Thanks so much for coming on, interviewing me. As you remember, we're not trying to be right. We're just trying to understand on this show. Do you have anything you want to plug before you go?
Well, if you guys, there's no White Sox game on tonight, and you guys are already on YouTube, in about 55 minutes, we as the Chicago Sports Bums do the Bumcast on the Chicago Sports Bums YouTube channel. We're going to talk a little White Sox tonight. We have Riot Fest. Riot Fest is making a bunch of enemies.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all Riot Fest fans. So we're going to talk a little bit about Riot Fest versus the Chicago Park District and the Chicago Red Stars, and then our usual nonsense segments. But yeah, we're at Chicago Sports Bums on YouTube. We do a happy hour show every other Friday. And then the big thing is what you guys have helped us with, the tailgates, the Whiskey at Comiskey tailgates. We have one coming up June 29th. It's an early one. We're doing a brunch tailgate. We're going to have breakfast foods there, Bloody Marys,
mimosas. Now, what time is that? The game's at 1:10. What time is the
10 a.m.
tailgate? 10 a.m.
We're going to be there at 10 a.m. We're going to have breakfast
baby.
Foods and some micheladas and some Bloody Marys. It'll be a lot of fun. But then we got a couple big ones lined up for July and August, including a Cubs versus Sox one in August. It's going to be a big blowout, and we're going to have a couple sponsors we can't say yet, but it's going to be fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. In the YouTube notes, you can go follow the Chicago Sports Bums YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash the like when you go to watch a show later on. Baloney, thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
It was a great birthday of you and me chatting it up like this. I really loved it, my friend.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we broke the super chat record. I'll go back and tally. I'll go tally it up.
Double check. Take care, my friend.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye. That was Baloney. That was awesome. I was so happy to do that for my birthday. I hope everyone enjoyed it because I felt a little self-indulgent by doing that. So, but anyway, I really had a great time. Next week's guest, I don't know. I haven't booked a goddamn thing for next week. Maybe we'll take next week off. We'll see. Maybe it'll be me and Treasy ranting about some shit. Anyway, I just want to thank Punky's Pizza and Pasta, all the 108 families up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course, the drinks and tips. I love all of you. See you on Thursday. I think it's going to be just me and MS.